24 hours ago. I want to be indicted.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
Welcome back to another edition of the Politics Unplugged podcast, and I want to welcome in our two guests, the two great reporters here from the Capitol Press Corps, Jeremy Duda with Axios Reporting and Stacey Barchenger with the Arizona Republic. Thank you so much. I don't know what we're going to talk about this week. Not much really happened other than what? We had 11 of the so-called fake electors were indicted this week, along with 7 other co-conspirators in this case. We also had updates on the attempts to repeal the abortion ban. So, kind of a big week.
Big day. Big day Wednesday.
Big day, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with the indictments. I mean, I can't remember really a kind of a story like this big that's breaking this politically. I can't remember anything even remotely, touching the kind of scale of something like this. If Stacey, if you can kind of give us the 20,000-foot view on this, I thought you really wrote a great story on Deadline about all of this stuff that was happening. So let's start with you.
Yeah, so this is the end of what Chris Mays told us she was looking into roughly a year ago. This plot of 11 Republican electors for Trump here in Arizona who said in 2020 that that they were duly elected to give the state to him. This was all part of a plot that we now know a lot about, right, because of federal cases, work by the Congressional Committee to give Congress a path not to certify Joe Biden's rightful win in 2020. So we've got these 11 Republicans here in Arizona who are now facing charges in a 9-count indictment that Mays released on Wednesday. And noteworthy, she went big. She investigated and brought charges through the grand jury of 7 top Trump allies. These are names that Arizonans will know: Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, Jenna Ellis, Christina Bobb, familiar faces to our Arizona audiences. Yeah,
and he also included, the 2 state senators, Jake Hoffman, Anthony Kern. Jerry, tell us a little bit about them and what their role was.
Well, these are, these 11 fake electors. This group included some pretty prominent folks in Republican politics out here. As you mentioned, the 2 state senators, Anthony Kern, Jake Hoffman. Jake Hoffman, wields a lot of power down there at the Capitol. He's been, at least at times, has been very close with Senate President Warren Peterson. He was running the committee that was kind of just created to rake Governor Hobbs's executive nominees over the coals. He leads the Freedom Caucus down there, so his opinion, which is a very large faction in both chambers, so
it's influential.
Very influential. If the Republican caucus wants to do something and the Freedom Caucus is not on board, that'll kill your bill. That'll kill your plans. But number other interesting folks in there: Kelly Ward, who at the time was a chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Very significant figure in politics at times, laying low a little more the last few years, but
and Stacey, you brought this up. We've been reporting on this. We've been hearing bits and pieces about this story for years now. Was there anything in that indictment when you're going through it that's like, wow, this is new?
Well, I think what is interesting is Chris Mays has charged 2 Trump allies that are not facing charges elsewhere. Christina Bobb, who was very influential in our Arizona Senate ballot review audit disaster. So we've got Christina Bobb and then Boris Epshteyn, who was also a factor in furthering this plot and also all of this election skepticism that continues to divide the Republican Party here.
And Jeremy, what stood out for you when you went through these indictments?
Just kind of how expansive it is. And we've seen, this is the 4th state where we've seen indictments like this against over the fake electors plots. But, Michigan and Nevada, it was just the fake electors who got indicted. Georgia was much more expansive. That was a lot of folks both inside and outside the state. But the federal indictment, January 6th indictments, I think that was just President Trump. So this was pretty wide ranging, and we kind of started seeing that, I think late last year, that this was going beyond just the 11 folks who cast these false electoral votes for Trump, and they really did, get these big names, Eastman, Giuliani, Meadows. I thought it was significant as well. Stacey mentioned that the two folks who hadn't been charged anywhere else. I think Epstein was an unindicted co-conspirator, or at least believed to be one in one of the other cases. I don't think Bob's been involved in any of these, and that's obviously a name that stands out Arizona as a kind of purported so-called reporter for the so-called audit. And those of us who followed the audit became quite familiar with her work. Now I believe she's running some quote-unquote election integrity efforts for related to.
Yeah, I remember every time I went out to I think every time I went out to that audit to go cover that, she was there. I think she probably would account to that as well.
Yeah, she was down at the other end of the press table doing the coverage.
Yeah, and before we start talking about what happens next and some what people are saying about this, I do want to kind of address this. Chris Mayes made it very clear at the beginning that she acknowledged that maybe this indictment didn't happen fast enough for some people. Maybe can you talk to us a little bit? There was a good story to break down as to why Arizona is doing this 3-4 years after all this stuff took place.
Yeah, totally. She's been under immense political pressure, right? And these 3 other states that have brought cases just seem to ratchet it up every single time. As she has said, she was elected in November 2022. She took office in January 2023. And her predecessor, Republican Mark Brnovich, took the position that this was up to the feds to go after this first, right? Some would say he took a very passive approach on this issue, straddled this line of election denialism that has gripped the Republican Party here. But all that to say, the federal case doesn't include charges against these Arizona electors. So Chris Mayes comes into office. She launches an investigation, takes about 13 months, and then we get to what happened on Wednesday.
Yeah, and also, I think what's really interesting to me, one of the more fascinating pieces of the story is the reason why we're seeing the indictments come through here, and we didn't see that happen in other places like neighboring New Mexico, is because there was some qualifying language in New Mexico on this that basically said, if it becomes apparent that they need a second set of electors, we're it. There was no qualifying electors. I mean, they are accused of just plain out falsely saying that they were the duly elected, qualified electors for the state of Arizona. But some of the defendants in this case, aren't they saying that, well, we didn't know we didn't know we were breaking the law, or we thought we were signing up to be alternate electors? Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's kind of the main thrust of the defense argument that we've heard so far is well, this was just a contingency plan. There was litigation going on that could have changed the results of the election. Now, I think that's probably a debatable point in terms of exactly how legitimate some of this litigation was. I mean, first of all, President Trump was no longer challenging the results in Arizona at all. So it was all up to these outside cases. You had these things like this ridiculous Kraken case that Sidney Powell brought that I've never seen a judge rip apart a case in a dismissal order the way the judge did in that one. There's some AZGOP litigation I think had been dismissed at that point. It may have been on appeal, but nothing that I think any rational legal observer would have looked at and said, this is something that can change the outcome of the election in Arizona. Now, whether some of these defendants can convince a jury, hey, I was just doing this in good faith because this other elector told me, or Rudy Giuliani told me, and at that point you could start to see some of them, maybe turn on each other. There's 11 of these folks, and who knows who told who what. Or
well, I got to follow. Pardon the interruption. I got to follow up on that turning on each other, because you had a very interesting conversation with the attorney for one of the accused fake electors, Jim Lehman. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Jim Lehman was originally represented by Kurt Altman, who was representing 9 of these electors.
He's down to 8 now.
Now he's down to 8 because Jim Lehman went out and got his own attorney, Dennis Welch, very prominent, well-known local attorney here in the Valley for many years. And when I spoke with Welch the day of the indictments. I mean, he said a lot of the same things you'd expect the lawyers for any of these folks to say. But when I started asking, but he was saying, oh, well, he just thought this was a contingency. That was his told. He might have been told that by one of the other electors. I don't know for sure who said that. And that kind of opened the door to the next question. It's like, well, what about a plea deal? What about the possibility of, Mr. Lehman, turning witness and testifying against the others? And he said, basically, well, anything's possible, but there's nothing on the table right now, which certainly kind of leads you to wonder what will happen if there is something on the table from the Attorney General's office at some point, which perhaps there may be.
And what are we hearing from, I know that Senator Hoffman has been active on social media. Anthony Kern has been active on. What are we hearing from them?
Well, Senator Hoffman says he's innocent. Anthony Kern, also a senator, says that, he was just doing what Trump asked him to do. And if you'd like to support his campaign for Congress, go ahead.
Well, why not? If you're handed lemons, why not make lemonade, political lemonade out of the whole thing?
Sure, maybe that'll play well in the primary.
I was going to say, it might play well in the primaries there, because I would imagine that most of the electorate, big chunks of the electorate, are already made up of whether they did this or not. But that said, it's worth pointing out that we're innocent until proven guilty. They're going to go through the process and have a chance to clear their name. So we'll find out about that. And that process, I understand, May 21st is when they're set to be arraigned. Can you elaborate any more on what we expect to see on that day?
Yeah, so this, as I understand it, this will be the first day they show up in court. Obviously, nobody was in custody when they were indicted, so they get paperwork that says you need to show up in court on this date, make an initial appearance before a judge, enter a preliminary plea. But to Jeremy's point, these cases are complicated. Who knows how this all will unfold? So, I'm not expecting any sort of resolution in the next months, if not years.
Yeah, these kinds of white-collar crimes can play out for a very, very long time. But the political ramification, we just were joking about the primary. It may help some of these folks in the Republican primary, but let's talk about how it plays into politics in general. It seems like this is another talking point that Democrats will be trying to use against Democrats, and then Republicans will just be trying to say this is more proof that Democrats are weaponizing the justice system. Is that basically a fair summation?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen this from legislative Republicans toward Chris Mays for a while now, and possibly partly in anticipation, knowing that this investigation.
Well, that's why Anthony Kern launched an investigation, and
they have a committee to look into Chris Mays and what they claim is her partisan weaponization of the office. Attorney General Mays has not seen fit to show up at the committee or take it seriously in any way. We're going to see the same partisan talking points we've been seeing surrounding this in every other state and all over the country, kind of ad nauseum. I don't know how much it changes kind of the messaging politically for the election. I mean, obviously the Democrats have a little more ammo now in terms of just saying, well, they tried to steal the election. Now you can point and say, well, they've been indicted for trying to steal the election on allegations of doing that. I think everyone's just kind of dig in their heels and kind of stick by the talking points we've been hearing for a long time, though.
All right. Well, we're starting to run a little bit long, so let's pivot over to the other. What I thought heading into the week, was going to be like the big story was this attempted effort to repeal the 1864 abortion ban. Well, it turns out third time's the charm. First two times, Republicans successfully blocked that effort in the House. Third time, it looks like, it was a few Republicans joined with Democrats to overrule their speaker to make this happen. Action now moves over to the Senate. And I'll leave it up to you to take this. What do we expect in the Senate next week? They're going to be able to, my understanding is they'll be able to pretty easily vote this out and send it up to the governor and repeal it.
Yeah, I think what they can do is just since the two bills are identical, they can swap them out, a mirror bill, so the Senate can kind of forego some of the procedural stuff that probably would have dragged on for a few more weeks and just swap it out for the House bill now. So I'm thinking we could, there's a pretty good chance we're going to see the final vote on this bill to repeal the ban next Wednesday, and I would imagine it'll go up to Governor Hobbs pretty quickly. And the second that lands on her desk, I'm sure we'll have a press conference and an announcement about signing it. So,
well, my guess for you is when do we expect that the session will end? Because that's important, because this repeal will not take place until 90 days after the end of the legislative session.
Yeah, this is why I think the governor's approach is fascinating, right? Like, she has taken the position that she doesn't want to call these lawmakers into a special session. She has said because the votes aren't there. Well, the votes are there now, and a special session would mean this goes into effect much sooner. but there has been no shift in her position. She's gonna let it go through the regular process, which means 90 days after July 1st, or whenever the session wraps, this goes into effect.
Has she said anything else about why she's not changing her position there? Because it is interesting when you say there's not the votes there, and clearly we saw this week there is the votes there.
Well, I guess it kind of goes down to, like, who knows if the votes are there. Going into Wednesday, I think we all kind of suspected the word that we'd all been hearing was that the 31st vote was there with Representative Tim Dunn from Yuma. But no one really knew for sure. So it's,
Well, Dunn, for context, Dunn was expected to vote, with Democrats the week before.
Yeah. And there had been, you could see them pulling him into the members' lounge, people coming up to him on the floor from both sides, bending his ear, twisting his arm. So unless someone is conveying to the ninth floor that, hey, this 31st vote is there, go ahead and call the special session. It's kind of hard to do that without knowing that, since we all know that the general rule down there is you never call a special session unless you know the votes are going to come there, or where the votes are going to come from. But I don't know. I've heard people kind of speculate, hey, maybe there's a different situation. You put the pressure on them, put them on the spot. Who knows how that plays out? Everyone's been very tentative throughout this process. Like you mentioned last week, we thought it was going to be Tim Dunn, and then switched sides, and I went up to him after the floor and said, hey, what's going on? How are you going to vote? And he said, I think the 1864 ban needs to be repealed, but I've committed to more talks with my caucus, and was very cagey about whether he was willing to rule the speaker on.
Well, it turns out, I remember when they initially blocked the first attempt to repeal the law, was it Toma legislative leaders were saying, well, we want to go back and talk to our constituents, right? Figure out where they're at on this. Well, lo and behold, they come back with a plan that was accidentally leaked to everybody to send out all these competing ballot measures to the November election that would compete against the independent ballot measure, the Arizona Abortion Access Act, that is going to be on the ballot come November, that would protect in the state constitution the right to an abortion. If you heard anything else about whether they're going to move forward on that down at the legislature?
On Wednesday, we did at the Rules Committee right before the House went to the floor. They did grant a handful of Republican legislators, including Speaker Toma, permission for late introduction of up to 3 ballot referrals. So when we'll see the language, if we'll see the language, Travis Grantham, who chairs the committee, even said at the time, like, hey, this might not even happen. This is just procedural permission to introduce these. And if they do get introduced, who knows how many votes are actually there for this? I spoke with Senator Shope, I think about a week ago, and asked him about that, and he was not thrilled about what he'd been hearing about these ballot referrals. No one had really talked to the Republicans in the Senate about it, and he was saying he wasn't sure if he could vote for any of these, but he added, like, I don't think I'm really going to have to anyway. I don't know if these are actually ever going to make it over to the Senate. We've known that this ballot measure, the citizen initiative, was coming for, 8 months? Longer? Like, we've known for a long time. If this had been a serious effort to try and give voters some kind of an alternative for what the Republicans view as a very extreme measure, or to try and derail this with competing measures to confuse voters, whatever it is, they had a long time to plan this. Like, this is probably something that should have started in January if this were a serious effort, not kind of popping up out of nowhere as the Arizona Supreme Court pulls the rug out from everyone.
I've been really shocked, but I don't know what you think. You get your opinion on this, but I've been really shocked with the Republican response to that, to the reinstating that 1864 law. I mean, I've just been shocked because from day one, we were talking about this before recording this, like Kathy Ayer was in committee telling them exactly this was going to happen. But if you pass the 15-week ban and then Roe is overturned, then the pre-Roe law that dates back to the Howell Codes of 1864, then take effect. And like the fact that they didn't have real contingency plans set in place, this is mind blowing to me. And their reaction, like, oh, we're shocked. It's just, I don't get it.
I think there's probably a lot of sentiment that, like, oh, we can vote for this, and like worst isn't going to come to worst. They're not going. The Supreme Court would uphold, Mississippi's 15-week law, and they wouldn't have to worry about what happens if Roe gets overturned. Then it happens, and they had to worry about it. And then, the Arizona Supreme Court gets the case. Is it the pre-Roe ban or is it the 15-week ban that goes into effect? And I think a lot of lawmakers on that side of the aisle were thinking, oh, well, we won't have to worry about it. They're going to uphold the 15-week ban, and it's not going to cause this disaster we'll have to deal with. And then it happens. So it seems like everyone kind of keeps getting caught flat-footed. And things they were maybe hoping wouldn't happen or expecting wouldn't happen come to pass. And all of a sudden, it's a new crisis everyone has to deal with at the Capitol.
All right. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. We're getting a little long there in the time. Two massive stories. This ain't the end of the story. I'm sure we'll be moving forward with this. Still a lot to play out with those indictments, and then we'll have to wait and see what the political drama that plays out next week, in the coming week, on this abortion stuff. So thank you both for joining me here at the end of what has been a very long, interesting week. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
And welcome back to the Politics Unplugged podcast. I'm joined now with Colin. Thanks for sticking around. And
of course.
Every damn week, you're like a warrior, man. I got to tell you, man, like, it's been a long week. I hosted a show on this and a podcast talking about the two massive stories this week, abortion and the indictments. And unless you have any burning desire to get something off your chest, like, I'm just done talking about it right now.
I can't imagine there's anything that's left unsaid.
Yeah. So if anybody's looking for more in-depth analysis on this, sorry, you're not going to get it, because I'm just done for it for the week at this point. You know what I'd rather talk about right now?
What's that?
Our terrible Suns takes. The second week in a row.
Yeah.
We have to talk a little bit about how, when we talk about basketball or sport ball, sometimes we're not that good.
No. We had week one of, they look terrible. They're going to struggle. They're in the play-in. And then they beat T-Wolves, I think. Mm-hmm. Was it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the Pelicans lost. So they bypassed the play-in. We're in the playoffs.
And we're like, whoa, we like the matchup. Oh, we like the matchup.
We like the matchup. And after saying we like the matchup, they're 0-2 and looking listless and indifferent.
Yeah, and just a reminder, this podcast, you're listening to it, is not live.
Yeah.
We tape on Friday.
So there's a game tonight, and I think probably another one on Sunday, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I'm not predicting anything.
I got nothing to say, because, the season might be over by the time this airs, or it might be 2-2 and a new beginning. I don't know.
I'm not going to say anything about that, because, I've been so wrong about the whole thing. I know I've got a gut feeling, but I'm not revealing that.
We can go ahead and keep it to ourselves.
You know what I'd rather talk about is the NFL draft, particularly the Arizona Cardinals, right? What'd you think of that? Marvin Harrison Jr.
I figured he would be there at 4. I was hoping they would not trade out to do something else. I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, me too. I was really surprised that, because there was so much talk before the draft about, mock drafts and all this reporting. And by the way, sports reporting in general is some of the worst reporting in America.
There's the best.
It's just god awful dreck.
And so many of the pre-draft narratives you hear just turn out to be wrong.
Yeah.
There were people acting like J.J. McCarthy from Michigan was rocketing up the board, and would he be one of the top 3 picks?
No, it turns out
he won't.
Yeah,
turns out he won't.
No, and it turns out, but basically, not a whole lot changed, except that I just cannot wait to see what happens with Jalen Daniels meets that, machine of an offense run by Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes. Yeah, we saw such magical things happen under his offense here. That's really going to be a delight. Good God. Watch it in Washington.
Oh, good God. Well, so what do you think about the Cardinals' second pick in the first round, Darius Robinson?
I'm familiar with him, Don't know enough about him. So
yeah, no, what I saw a little bit, saw some highlights, clips of his, and of course they're highlight clips. Of course he looks great because they're his highlights.
Yeah, that's how that works.
But it seems like I'd be pretty excited to see what he can do on the defense. They needed some real talent on there. Yeah. He seems like he's got talent. He certainly has the size. I mean, the guy's just a ginormous human being. I think he's like 6'5", 300 pounds. Yeah. So looking forward to seeing how he fits into everything.
Yeah. And as an Oregon Duck, I was very, very excited to see Bo Nix go at number 12 to Denver. Because I kept seeing mocks that didn't even have him in the first round.
Yeah, and as an Iowa fan, I'll refrain from the crime that has been perpetrated on the American football-loving public that Cooper DeJean was not drafted in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good guys that fell. There's still plenty out there.
There's still plenty of folks out there. There we go. We got that out of the way. Let's talk a little bit of something. You had a little bit of a bee in your bonnet, a burr in your saddle.
Yeah.
How would we describe this? The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced its 2024 inductees.
Yeah.
And to set this up, I'm not one of those people who bags endlessly on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There are music fans who hate it, think it's awful.
It's easy.
Think that, it's a really easy thing to complain about. I am generally of the opinion that they've done a pretty good job. I think the people who should be in the hall mostly are in the hall. I think there are some glaring omissions, but there are not that many of them.
Yeah.
And so I am not a complainer about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Except now. They announced their induction class for the year. And let me also say, a lot of people hear the inductees and they go, I thought it was rock and roll. And I'm totally cool with a wide definition of rock and roll.
Yeah.
R&B artists going in, hip-hop artists going in, I have no problem with that.
Huh.
It bothers some people. It doesn't bother me. But that'll come up again. So here are the inductees in alphabetical order. Mary J. Blige. Here's one where I'll abstain. It's not my genre. I know she's very well respected. It's not something I listen to, so I don't have much of an opinion there.
Yeah.
Number 2, Cher.
All right.
Yeah. So is that based on Believe, or If I Could Turn Back Time?
Maybe
or
just the
Half-Breed, or Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves?
maybe just the outfit.
Maybe
For Turn Back Time. I mean, that was a pretty rock and roll outfit.
This thing where she's straddling a cannon. Yeah, it was subtle. And this, of course, does not include the Sonny and Cher era, so you're not even getting the boost from "I Got You, Babe." I don't. And this feels like a setup because like 6 months ago she was on some talk show bitching about how she wasn't on, and she wouldn't accept it even if they put her in. And I'm gonna go ahead and guess she's accepting it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they put her in.
Although it'd be pretty rock and roll if she did walk up on stage and then spike it on the stage, spike it and just say, screw your award.
It would be arguably the first rock and roll act of her life. Next up, the Dave Matthews Band.
Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I mean, their most rock and roll act, of course, being when they dumped a busload of shit off a bridge in Chicago onto a sightseeing boat underneath.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I believe there's a plaque at the site.
Yeah, that music is just not meant for me. So I'll refrain from that too. It's just some
lovely stuff to play in the background at a mediocre.
The best thing I can say about the Dave Matthews is most of the time I can ignore it.
Yeah, it's inoffensive.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. We're giving awards to that now.
Yeah.
Absolute rock bottom for me. They put Foreigner in. What are we doing here? When they have the induction concert event, can they do it at a county fair so Foreigner feels at home? At least like bring in the smell of fried foods and
some fried Twinkies.
Yeah.
Those county gigs pay well, Colin. Yeah. They pay well. Okay?
Yeah.
I once saw the Beach Boys at a county fair.
I saw the Beach Boys after a soccer game once in the old North American Soccer League.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did they play Kokomo?
It was pre-Kokomo.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't a Brian era thing. I'm sure it was just strictly the crap from the Beach Boys you never want to hear again. That seems to be the Mike Love era thing of the Beach Boys. Foreigner. I mean, it's just schlock.
Most offensive Foreigner song. Go.
I Want to Know What Love Is horrid. Mm-hmm. I mean, but you've got Cold as Ice and Urgent and I mean, pick one. They're all god awful.
Yeah, cold as Ice is really terrible.
It really is.
It's cold as ice. Awful. You're willing to sacrifice our love.
Yeah,
I've seen it before.
It happens all the time. Yeah, I know, and So I know the songs.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just awful.
Yeah.
So moving on. Peter Frampton. I'm sort of reminded of the scene in Animal House where they're looking at the prospective pledges and they put up a photo and everyone goes, and someone goes, we need the dues.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I mean, Frampton seems like a wonderfully nice guy. He's been around forever. He was in Humble Pie. He had like a live album that if you were alive and had a turntable in the 70s, you were pretty much issued by the government. I mean, everyone had Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah, my dad
had
had
the whole-
my dad had Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't hate
somewhere.
the record growing up.
No, he's fine. Again, seems like a nice guy. I'll give him credit for he played guitar on a David Bowie tour, and was a
cool.
childhood friend of David
That
Bowie.
alone qualifies him for the
Yes.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I think his dad was one of Bowie's teachers, or like the headmaster of Bowie's school growing up. Yeah, okay. All right, here we get less egregious. Cool in the Gang.
Oh, yeah. Give me more. Give me all of it.
Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, who's going to argue with that?
Yeah.
No one's going to argue with that.
I mean, it doesn't include his Black Sabbath years. He's already in as a member of Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, Crazy Train, put him in on that alone. That's great.
he is a true, like, for people of a certain age, like him and Lemmy are like rock and roll incarnate.
Yes, pretty much. The last of the just standard entries here, A Tribe Called Quest.
Oh yeah, give me all of it. Give me
And
all
again,
of it.
that's one where I largely abstain. It's not my wheelhouse. Although I Left My Wallet in El Segundo is just a stone classic. So
good.
All right, so then we have the Musical Excellence Award, which I
What?
believe, yes, there are 4 people in under the Musical Excellence Award.
What the fuck is a musical excellence Hall of Fame?
I believe this is generally the way they slide in people who they think should be in, but don't have the widespread popularity to actually win a vote.
Is this like
they think someone should be honored, but they know the general voting public doesn't know who the hell they are, so they'll slide them in under this.
Is this like the
That's my
wing of the
understanding.
Baseball Hall of Fame where they put
Sort of like the
here's the
Veterans
Roger Maris 61st home run baseball, even though Roger Maris didn't make the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Is like this the kind
I think
of
that's sort of it, yes.
yeah, okay, whatever.
So again, the first of these musical obscurities who they had to slide in without actually passing a vote, Jimmy Buffett.
Well, dude, you're doing that simply for the marketing.
Yes.
It's only
Yes.
for the marketing, so there's fans can show up with their parrots looking for cheeseburgers.
Yes. This feels very much like oh shit, he died and we never got him in.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of what you view of the merits of Jimmy Buffett being in the Hall of Fame, or to put him in the Musical Excellence Award just seems weird. People are familiar with him. People have heard Margaritaville.
Yeah.
He can get in on a regular vote if you want. Number 2 in that, the MC5, which sort of fits the classic
Rock and roll definition.
Yeah, people barely know they've heard of the MC5.
I really loved it. I loved the
influential.
MC5 back in the day. Like I put them in that category with the Kinks, kind of like early, like kind of stuff like that. And I love them, but like they're basically known for one moment, and that is yelling out "Kick out the jams" at the '68 Chicago Democratic Convention.
Yes, which was enough to qualify for musical excellence,
I guess.
And Wayne Kramer just died, so that's probably one of the reasons why he got it.
Yeah.
Dionne Warwick. Again, I'm a Big Tent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame guy. I'm cool with a broad definition of rock and roll. I'm not sure you broaden it out enough that it includes Dionne Warwick. Maybe you do. And also, if I'm Dionne Warwick and I'm like, oh, they put Jimmy Buffett in this category because he just died, and they put the MC5 in this category because Wayne Kramer just died.
Yeah.
Is there something somebody needs
like
to
if
tell
you just
me here?
if that was like a Jeopardy question, you just listed Jimmy Buffett, MC5, Dionne Warwick, and who else? And Foreigner. No.
Well, the 4th one under this category is Norman Whitfield.
And Norman Whitfield. The answer would be what is a category that makes no sense?
Yeah. People who have never been in my kitchen. Are you Cheers fans? Number 4, Norman Whitfield, who has been deceased for a while, so he did not sneak in under the we need to get him in thing. I had no issue with him getting in at all. So we're down to the final three, which is the Musical Influence Award.
Oh boy.
And number one, Alexis Corner.
Huh?
Yeah, I didn't know who he is either. He's a British blues guitarist.
Great. Oxymoron. British don't play the blues. Sorry.
Well, then
Sorry.
you're not going to like the second one.
Sorry.
John,
Don't you say Eric Clapton.
Well, it's Clapton affiliated.
Clapton
John
adjacent?
Mayall of John Mayall and Blues
Okay,
Breakers.
yeah.
And when we click on the bio here, 'cause the list of people who passed through the Blues Breakers is impressive, including Eric Clapton.
Oh, dear. Stop.
Yeah, I know. It's a demerit, but the rest on this list, Peter Green, the original guitarist of Fleetwood Mac, who is a wonderful guitarist. Mick Taylor, who, among other things, played on the probably the best Rolling Stones stuff in the early 70s. Bassist Jack Bruce and John McVie of Fleetwood Mac, and drummer and Mick Fleetwood, also a member of the Blues Breakers.
Yeah.
So it's an impressive list. So
All right.
sure. And Big Mama Thornton.
What is she? Is she a British blues singer?
She's not. No, she did the original version of Hound Dog, or at least the original famous version of Hound Dog.
Okay.
So, sure, no issue there. But anyway, yeah. So, congrats to Foreigner. What the hell are we doing with that, man? Dick Dale isn't in yet. Dick Dale
needs to be in. He invented a whole genre, subgenre of music.
I mean, like, Foreigner, who invented the, like, corporate shit rock.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just awful. It's awful.
Yeah. It's like the sound. It's like Foreigner's the soundtrack for shitty '80s made-for-television movies.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know what else to say about that.
No, I think we've probably covered
I mean,
that
if
thoroughly.
Foreigner's going to be in there, shouldn't Weird Al Yankovic be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I've seen Weird Al suggested seriously by a number of people.
Oh boy.
I find the younger generation thinks more high. Weird Al seems like a lovely guy.
No, yeah.
But-
I'd like to hang out with him.
But come on, man. If you take someone else's work and take the lyrics and replace them with some type of food, that does not earn you a spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah, Eat It was cute the first time. Enjoyed the video.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting in the hall. But again, if Foreigner's in, what the hell?
Yeah.
Pauly Shore will be in next year.
Ricky Rackman.
That's right. We're going to start inducting like secondary MTV VJs.
Well, if they're doing that, they better induct the original crew. You know, Alan Hunter and
J.J. Jackson.
J.J. Jackson was the best.
Alan Hunter.
Alan Hunter,
who has like a tiny role in a Bowie video before he became a VJ.
Wow.
If you look closely.
Nina Blackwood.
Nina Blackwood, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Martha Quinn.
Martha Quinn.
Martha Quinn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, Kurt Loder.
Kurt Loder of the News, yeah.
The News. Dude, they used to do a newscast
Yeah.
on MTV.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't need VJs anymore because they don't play V anymore.
They don't.
There are no videos.
Oh, times have changed.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking us through that list.
Yeah. No, my pleasure.
Making me angry with Foreigner.
Spent 40 years angry at Foreigner. And with that,
Let's sign off on that.
yeah, have a lovely week.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.